right, so to get things started, Bryon with the sky this month.
Okay. Whoa. Someone's cell phone. Thank you. Okay. The coming month, we have Mother's Day on the 12th. So I thought I'd pick a theme and talk about all things related to mothers and Mother's Day in the night sky. Let me just say a few words about this photo. A few weeks ago, we had the good fortune to go one of my favorite places in the south Arizona, where Arizona has lots and lots of observatories. There's Flagstaff, there's Kitt Peak that you can visit. There's the fantastic, perfect meteor crater. Lots of meteorite vendors live in that area. Good telescope stores and nice dark skies like this here. And if you go in March and April, you can see Omega Centauri rising around midnight in those 2 months just from your doorstep. It's quite wonderful. So I've nicknamed the area the Mecca for astronomy in mainland America, or MAMA. So let me begin by talking about Luna. Luna was, or Selene in Greek, was the Titan goddess who drove her two-horse chariot across the night sky to visit her lover, Endymion, while her brother Sol, or Helios, rested with his four-horse chariot that he drove across the daytime sky. So here we have, Mother's Day on the 12th down there, which is just after Astronomy Day on the 11th. So probably no late night imaging, or you won't be up to speed for Mother's Day. And we just passed Earth Day, so it's a big month here. We have the first couple of weeks, we have pretty good time for observing because the moon is not full. The moon is not full till the 18th, the week after Mother's Day. It happens to be the flower moon, also called the corn planting moon or milk moon. Not sure how you pronounce this in Inuit, but it means the time when ducks and geese return from south because there aren't too many flowers in the Arctic. Each native culture has their own names, and if you want to look further, there's some interesting names for the different moons. In the southern hemisphere, it would be, of course, fall, so it's the hunter's moon. And you'll notice that the moon's closest approach to us is about a week earlier, so clearly the moon won't be within 10% of its maximum size for the month, which is the definition of a supermoon. Those we had earlier in March, and we won't have another supermoon until the 2 in August and 1 in September, except those aren't full moons, they're new moons. So that's one thing I want to point out. The blue moon, this is also a blue moon, and blue moons come every 1 to 2 years, every 2 to 3 years. And a blue moon means that we've got 4 full moons between the equinox, like the March equinox, and the solstice. And the blue moon is the third moon. So this is the third moon in that period, or astronomical season. I would have put a blue flower in here, but blue is a rare shade in plants and flowers and animals. So they don't actually have a true blue pigment, so I settled for a red rose. If we look at Sol and what Sol is doing for us, Sol is cutting down our nighttime observing by an hour and a half over this month period. So sunrise, sunset are about 6:30, quarter after 8 right now, and that changes by a half hour in the sunset, and sunrise much earlier as well. So we're starting to lose that nighttime observing as we get closer to mid-June. So let's carry on with the theme of mothers in the solar system. And the obvious mother in the solar system is Earth, or Gaia. But let's see what other ones we have. Aphrodite is the only other planet named after a woman. If we look a little further, we go to the asteroid belt, and there's actually quite a few asteroids named after mothers. Juno, I'll single out, because Juno was Jupiter's wife, and Jupiter was a bit of a ladies' man, so it's just as well that she's separated from Jupiter in the asteroid belt. Now Jupiter, if any of you entered that contest that Carnegie Science had, it closed on April 15th. It was to name 5 of the 12 new moons that were discovered for Jupiter. You would have learned that all of Jupiter's moons have to be named after either Jupiter's descendants or his lovers. So I've listed a few. I didn't want to go through all 79. And you notice interesting ones here, like Europa led to the name for Europe. Callisto, I didn't know, appears in the night sky twice, once as a moon of Jupiter, and another time as the constellation Ursa Major. And Leda, a rather tiny moon of Jupiter, was the mother of Castor and Pollux in Gemini. If we go to Saturn, there's a similar thread. A lot of the moons are named after mothers. In particular here, we've got Dione, who is a Titan giant goddess that was the mother of Venus, our other female planet. Now, let's talk about all the planets, or as the Greeks said, oops, anyone pronounce that? I can't. But we translate it as planet, or wandering stars. I love this image because it shows all the planets to scale, lined up between Earth on the left and Moon on the right, also to scale, and the distance between Earth and Moon is to scale. So you have exactly enough room to fit them all in, plus, and I didn't realize this, but there's 700,000 plus asteroids would fit in this narrow gap that's only about 2/3 the width of Earth. So I love to start off with this when I talk about the solar system. And if you take Saturn here and flip it on its side, you'll notice that it stretches almost from Earth to Moon. So as well as the fact that Saturn will float, you've got that little fact. Now if we look at some of these wandering stars, we've got Mercury, Venus, and Mars. We've got down at the bottom left here, Venus quite bright, but close to the horizon on May 2nd. I'm not sure you'd make out Mercury, but you have sort of your guidepost there and a thin moon crescent. Mars on May 6th, 7th, also near the beginning of the month, comes very close to the moon here in Taurus. Mercury is really past its prime for viewing. It goes superior conjunction with the Sun third week of May. Venus, you better get your shots the next couple of weeks before it gets too close to the Sun. And Mars, it's still visible, but getting lower every day. And here is perhaps an interesting opportunity, although it is low at only 8 degrees at, say, 10:30-ish, going through the M35, lovely bright cluster. Hopefully it'll be bright enough to see that close to the horizon. But on these 2 days, you might be able to catch that and get a little photo of that. Let's move on to the outer planets, the gas giants. Now, beginning of the month, they don't rise before midnight, but by the end of this period, they rise 2 hours earlier, so you're going to start to be able to get Jupiter at a comfortable hour in the late evening. On the 20th, did I say 4 a.m.? Okay, 4 a.m. We've got Jupiter near the moon, and on the 21st, the moon is on the other side of Jupiter. So there's a photo opportunity in the south. Saturn on the 25th, which is tonight, and it looks like it's going to be clear tonight. I think you knew that because we've got a meeting tonight. Saturn will be close to the moon, and another potential photo op for you. Now, as far as Jovian events, I looked through the handbook and also Cal Sky, a really great site for calculating events for the transits of Jupiter's moons and for the Great Red Spot. And I highlighted a few. There's quite a few transits, but some happen during the day, so they're not good for us. These I've highlighted. This one here, maybe May 18th, when Ganymede is in occultation and then comes out mid-morning, and then Io goes across Jupiter's face in the shadow transits as well. And Jupiter's placed nicely in the sky for that. As far as transits of the Great Red Spot, since Jupiter's turning every 10 hours, there's quite a few. Probably a couple of the best ones might be May 3rd and 15th, just after midnight, when you could see the Great Red Spot. And going on to Uranus and Neptune, they're kind of poor morning targets. I think you might have seen Uranus on the earlier slide. It's getting lost in the glare of the sun's dawn. This conjunction with Venus, only about a degree away, maybe you would see something on the 18th, but I think it would probably be too bright to make out Uranus. And Neptune, it's rising earlier as the month progresses, so 5 a.m. at the beginning and an hour and a half earlier. No conjunctions there. This is probably one of the best opportunities to get a photo op, I think, during the month. We've got the moon, the quarter moon, passing right through the beehive. So if you take a series of shots, maybe you could put it together and have something like this, which would be quite interesting. And since I've got the theme of Mother's Day, what about mothers on the moon? Now, there aren't many craters named after mothers on the moon. There are less than 2%. NASA even had a fight getting the Astronomical Union to agree to naming this mountain that Lovell saw on Apollo 8 50 years ago when orbiting the moon, and he nicknamed it Mount Marilyn after his wife. There was such a groundswell to keep the name because everyone had been using it that the Union relented, and it's called Mount Marilyn. But I highlighted 3 of the craters named after women. Leavitt was Henrietta Leavitt, who was a human computer. If you saw the movie Hidden Figures, they talked about the human computers doing calculations for NASA space programs. Leavitt was doing calculations for Harvard, for Pickering, Professor Pickering, and she identified the relationship between the luminosity and period of Cepheid variables. Caroline Herschel has her own crater on the near side, on the west side of Mare Imbrium. And Marie Curie lost out because her husband got a crater named Curie after himself on the near side. So they used her maiden name, Sklodowska, to name a rather large crater on the far side, about 127 kilometers in diameter on the far side. And it turns out that there's also a Curie crater on Mars, this time named Curie after Marie Curie. Now, I always like to find something interesting to look at on the moon, so I came across this interesting contrast between a very young crater, 100 million years old is young for the moon, and a very ancient one, almost as old as the solar system, 4 billion years old, Clavius. They're both in the same area here on the top right of the South Pole, Tycho, above Clavius. And Tycho, everyone knows, is noted for its bright ray system, which you can look for on May 18th. And here there's some LRO, Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter shots of Tycho with the mountain in the middle. I didn't include, right here, there's a giant boulder that it caught in great detail as well. You can look that up, it's quite interesting. So Tycho's quite young. I don't think the dinosaurs with their poor eyesight would have seen that asteroid crash into it. This Clavius, on the other hand, very old, very well preserved. It has this interesting arc of about 5 craters of diminishing size. So one thing you might try to do is observe with your scope, say around the quarter moon or a couple of days past May 13th, and see how many of those you can see, starting with Rutherford here on the rim. Both these craters happen to be named after astronomers, and like a lot of famous features in the solar system, they appear somewhere in science fiction. In this case, 2001 Space Odyssey. The admin base on the moon was near Clavius, and the black giant monoliths in 2001 were found in Tycho. Now, space debris. You could say that meteors, they're flashing lights like diamonds flying through the sky, are a gift for mothers everywhere. The Eta Aquarids meteor shower occurs in May. Pallas, that was mentioned last month, is still there and visible. Probably this will be the last month. And comets, not so much, nothing quite bright enough. Zodiacal light, I think we're past the point of seeing that from anywhere around here or at a dark site or whatever. And ISS passes starting the end of this month. There are a number of ISS passes in the morning and in the evening. I've shown four of the brighter ones here, going from west to east here, that cross a great part of the sky. So good opportunities to take a photo or observe those or point them out to the neighbors' kids. And let's talk about the fireworks, the meteor shower, the Eta Aquarids. Now, if you're like me, you may not be around for the next coming of Halley's Comet. So this is a good opportunity to see what Halley's Comet left behind. The Orionids, the week before Halloween, is the other meteor shower whose origin is from Halley's Comet. By the way, Halley's does not cross Earth's path anymore. These streams of dust and debris were left in Earth's path hundreds of years ago by Halley, Comet Halley. May 6th is the center for this meteor shower. It stretches on either side. You might see meteors on either side of that date. I think you're going to get quite a bit less than 40 per hour because it's so low on the horizon, although it does rise by 5 a.m. a fair bit up in the sky. There's no moon to interfere with it like there was for the Lyrids this month. So give it a shot to look for the Eta Aquarids and celebrate Victoria's Day or Mother's Day. Asteroids. So I apologize for the mess on this slide, but this shows Pallas, the second asteroid discovered. It goes at quite an angle to the solar system plane. It's well placed in Coma Berenice, just between there and Boötes. But you'll notice that it's starting to, the path from our point of view, it's starting to not move as quickly. Down here in the next couple of weeks, you probably could see movement of the asteroid, say, within 30 minutes or an hour. So if you can go to Heavens Above or your favorite planetarium software and get your star chart and locate where it might be, observe it, observe the stars, mark them down. I'm not an imager, so I do it visually, and then come back later in the evening and check and see what's moved, and that would be your way of catching Pallas. Now, for those of you who did miss naming Jupiter's moons, I know this isn't an asteroid, but there's 2007 OR10 is one of the largest unnamed Kuiper Belt objects, and they're looking for a name. So you can go to the website, just look up 2000 OR10 and naming, and you'll find the website. You can go there, find out more information. There's 3 mythological figures to vote between. One Chinese figure, another one a European, and another one Vile, Nordic one. And I voted for Vile because Vile, along with Odin and another brother, they killed the frost god, Ymir, Y-M-I-R, and from Ymir's body they created the universe and Earth, and I thought that was a good story, though it doesn't tie into the reddish color that this KBO has, whereas I think this one does. So have a look and make your entry. Now, this is the sky about middle of the 4-week period, the month. I probably should have picked it later in the evening so it'd be a little bit darker, but I wanted to show Mars down here and just some of the, you can see that all the winter constellations are pretty well gone and the summer constellations are starting to rise and we'd be well placed in the early morning hours. But still, we've got Leo and Virgo with all the galaxies in there to observe. Here's the beehive. And right up here, following the Mother's Day theme, there's Iota in Cancer. And near Iota, there is 55 Cancri, which you probably can't see. But 55 Cancri E is an exoplanet going around 55 Cancri, which is made out of crystallized diamond. Now, wouldn't that be a great gift for your mother? They've estimated that this is worth $27 nonillion, US dollars too. So a nonillion is, for those who don't know, and I had no clue, it's 10 to the 30th. So that would make every mother and then some very wealthy woman on Earth. So then we've got Leo here, some lovely, Leo triplet, Markarian's chain. We've got the great coma cluster here. I just love that in binoculars. We've got around Polaris, how many knew there was a diamond ring there? So Polaris is the gemstone, and around it is a circle of faint stars. I'll show you that in a moment. And then we've got all of these gobs and gobs of globulars that are rising, like M3, M5, 13, 92, and all these in Ophiuchus. So lots to look at in the coming month before we get to those really short nights in June, July. In celestial mothers in the sky, out of all of the 88 constellations, there's only 3.5 that are named after mothers. Cassiopeia, the polar constellation, Andromeda, her daughter, Virgo the maiden next to Leo, and Coma Berenices. Berenices was a queen of Egypt who sacrificed her hair to the gods in order to get their favor so that her husband returned safely from the war with Syria. This is Ptolemy the second, I think. I don't know whether that happened or not, but the gods took favor on her and put her hair in the sky, and that's the lovely coma cluster that we see in the heavens. Now, here's the important part of Mother's Day. What do you give your mother? So what is there in the night sky? And if you've been to a really, really dark site like on the top of Mauna Kea or in the Atacama Desert, you know that the night sky itself, the stars there are so bright and sharp that it looks like jewels. So I'm not going to count that here. But I have some other jewelry. There's flowers in the sky, and I know you've thought of one or two, but I'll surprise you with another. And there's chocolate in the sky. And I bet you wonder what that is, but you'll have to wait a minute. So Here's the diamond ring. So there's there's Polaris, and there's a ring of stars, much fainter, going around it, going around the gemstone. So that's the diamond ring, an asterism in Ursa Minor. This galaxy is called, nicknamed Bernice's hair clip as well. I mentioned the Coma star cluster. There's the crown, Corona Borealis, in the South Australis. And there's this real interesting one. Blake talks a lot, has some very interesting double stars. I don't know whether he's had this one, but it's called Chappell's Arc around H1470 there, which is a true double star. There's an arc of double stars, bright ones there. But if you look carefully, there's a whole ring of much fainter ones. So this, I've got to try going for this. I haven't looked for this. Cygnus will be higher after midnight this time of year, so it's something you might want to try to look for and even capture an image like this. It's quite unique. I think the only double is probably this one up here, the H1470. And I've put in the other coordinates here because I found Starry Night and Stellarium didn't have H1470. But they do have these two. Ring Nebula, of course, little gem. But flowers. Okay, flowers. Everyone thinks, say, the Rosette Nebula or Iris Nebula. I hadn't heard of Caroline's Rose, but there's an open cluster in Cassiopeia. And the interesting thing I found is that just as a lot of asteroids are named after goddesses, there are quite a number, 86, named after flowers and plants. So who would have known that there's a begonia asteroid, or orchis, or tulipa, or azalea? But I think it's kind of neat. So there are flowers in the night sky. And now we come to the final one, chocolate. This is a bit of a cheat, okay? Because if you look at any galaxy, even the Hamburger galaxy, I saw that in southern Arizona in this 20-inch Maksudov, is just gorgeous with the dark band in the middle and the cap on top and bottom is wonderful. But it wasn't brown. But all the images that you see have the dust lanes as brown or brownish. So that's why I say there's chocolate in the night sky. Okay, just a little more detail and a little better image of this fairy ring. You can see the double stars going around here. They're all opticals, but still it's kind of nifty to track this down. To track it down, go between Eta Cygni and Gamma here, Satyr, and if you find 25 Cygni, which is bright enough, then just a little ways over is H1470, or whatever you want to use as the designation. And you'll find that. You can see, you could probably see this from a dark site with binoculars, but really you'd need a telescope to draw the fainter stars down below. So that's the fairy ring, or I should call it Chappell's Arc, because he was the amateur who really discovered it. I've already talked about quite a few of these. When I was in Arizona, I just had my binoculars with me, so I was picking out some of these, like in the Leo triplet, the brighter galaxies, and you could see them either directly or with averted vision, sombrero. So there are the ones I was talking about on the earlier slide. And everyone must have heard about the first image of the black hole. And Markarian's chain here just around here is where M87 is. It's a fairly bright galaxy. This is from Chandra, X-ray image, and you can clearly see the jet coming out of the center core of the galaxy. And there's the famous image now of the black hole. And you can see that all of our solar system, out to Pluto and beyond into the Kuiper Belt and Oort cloud, will fit within there. I mean, actually, Voyager is already passed out of our solar system, so there, it's the size of our solar system, this black hole. Can't see it, but you can search for the galaxy. And I was talking to someone, I'm not a nighttime photographer. I don't take astrophotos, I take other photos. But looking through an eyepiece, this is what you'd see with 8-inch, and on this side, the fainter galaxies here, a 10-inch scope from a very dark site. And this happens to be done by a very good astrosketcher. But you can see with a little bit of aperture, you can see the dust bands, and they won't be chocolate, unfortunately. And I just want to add, I found this website that has galaxy viewing with binoculars. So it talks about what you can see and how you might see it and what it might look like. I thought it was pretty interesting, pretty good. And I've always wanted to put this up to talk to people about it, but never had an opportunity until now. So you're my guinea pigs. Wolf 359. It's too faint for us to, in most cases, see, though you might image it. But we talk about stars not moving. They're constant in the same position in our lifetimes. Well, Wolf 359 happens to be the 5th nearest star to us at 8 light years, and it does have a proper motion across our field of view of 5 seconds of arc a year. So what that means is that in your lifetime, Wolf 359 will move about a quarter of a full moon. So this is one of the closest stars. And Bernard's star has a greater proper motion. It's double that, 10 arc seconds per year. So it would move half a full moon's width in your lifetime. So the stars do move. And the other neat thing about Wolf 359, no one shouted it out, but Star Trek, Battle of Wolf 359, where the Borg defeated the Federation, and of course, Picard and the Enterprise saved Earth later on. So something to look forward to. Occultations, there's nothing that I found in our neck of the woods. You'd have to move out west or down south south-south to see any interesting occultations this month. So I'll turn now to space missions. And I really love Olaf Frone here in the upper left. He does this chart every month. It's great. It shows all the missions. I want to point out a few. I don't know what's going to be happening the next month, but some recent events on the Hayabusa over here, looking at, how do I say this now? Ryugu. I had it written down, but Ryugu, and then OSIRIS-REx over on this side, Bennu. Over here, we have something that InSight did. Maybe some of you read about it today. And we, of course, have Beresheet, the Israeli lander that landed on the moon rather abruptly recently. And I want to point out this here, this red mark. This is one thing that Olaf missed. I don't know why, but I'll add that at the end. I'll talk about that. So, OSIRIS-REx. NASA got there and discovered that it's incredibly rocky. Doesn't appear to be much in the way of flat surface. So they're spending the next little while imaging it and trying to find a reasonably flat site to bring their lander down and take a sample. Now the Japanese Hayabusa 2, there's been some great images of it. Here's its shadow on the surface, very craggy. And then over here, just recently, it did one of its shots of a projectile to make a crater. And then it scooted around the other side, but before it got there, it captured an image of the debris flying off into space. So I thought that was kind of neat. They'll do another sample and explore it soon. And then Israel, small country, big dreams. Here's the selfie that it shot just before it landed on the moon. It crashed on the moon, about double the size of a washing machine. They're going to try again. The Israeli government this time is going to provide more funding to the private company Space IL, which did it all through, I think, $100 million of donations. So they're going to try again, and we'll see if they make it there. But today, Mars Insight, NASA announced that on the 6th of April, they detected a 2.5 magnitude earthquake, or Marsquake, the first quake recorded not on planet Earth. So that's a big event. And then finally, remember that red arrow on the top? So Earth was down here, and the red arrow is up here. So this is Elon Musk's, I think it was his personal Tesla Roadster. It was launched with a dummy dressed in an astronaut suit called Starman, sitting in the driver's seat with a radio blaring, playing Bowie's Space Oddity. This time it's gone that far around. It orbits in 557 days. This would be a great present for Mom if you could somehow get it back to Earth. Next year, it gets much closer to Earth, and just as some people tried to, and did image it when it was taking off and going out into its orbit, maybe it'd be possible to catch an image when it comes back. I'm not sure what condition it'll be in, because micrometeorites and solar wind will probably have wreaked havoc with the paint job. And probably all the organics, like the rubber tires or the seats. So it may need to be touched up before you give it to Mom. The battery, no doubt, if it's still playing, will probably need a replacement too. And you're going to have to pay out of your own pocket because the warranty's completely shot by 14,000 times. So, let's talk about space launches. So, space launches. What struck me about this month of space launches is there's every nationality and all kinds of countries launching spacecraft, into space. First of all, we have a cargo mission to the space station at the beginning of this period. We have a rather interesting military one here from the US, tracking of space debris, certainly that's needed. Situational awareness, I'm not sure what that is, but it sounds very military. A number of communication satellites here, here navigation. Canadian, a triple launch, so one rocket launching 3 satellites, 3 radar sats for various monitoring. Israel, Space IL, the private company, is launching from, I didn't say where it's launching from, a satellite, and another Russian one, this one here. And this one here, I put it on Chandrayaan-2, the second probe that India would send to the moon. The first one just orbited. This one, the intention is to land on the moon and deploy a rover to do some exploring. It's been delayed many, many times, and they had some problems with the lander. I think something broke on the legs. They have not changed the launch date from May, but likely they're going to shift to June or July, probably July because of better prospects, I understand. It'll be one to watch because they would be the first non-superpower to land on the moon and the 4th nation. So, here I have a summary of what I talked about, some of the highlights in the sky this night. Today happens to be the anniversary of the Hubble launch, 29, almost 30 years ago. We've got Celsius passed away on the 25th. Jan Oort was a well-known radio astronomer, and he also is noted for discovery of dark matter. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention May the 4th. Everyone knows that. Otto von Struve was a German-Russian astronomer in the 19th century. International Astronomy Day here. Mother's Day on the 12th. And 50 years ago, hard to believe, 50 years ago, the 5th mission the Russians sent to Venus landed successfully and lasted 53 minutes before it succumbed to the heat and toxic climate. And lastly, but not least, Wilhelmina Fleming was a human computer, just like the ones we saw in NASA and Hidden Figures, working for Professor Edward Pickering in Harvard, and she helped develop a stellar classification system. She cataloged thousands of stars and other astronomical phenomena, and she also discovered the Horsehead Nebula back in 1888. So that's the presentation. Here are some references, and this will probably be posted. I found CalSky, I used the wrong name earlier, but CalSky very useful for calculation of events for Jupiter. And the RASC handbook was great for that as well. I carry this with me all the time, the OITH, Objects in the Heavens. I have a hard copy, but I also have a soft copy. It goes down to Mag 10, and it has lots of interesting information on the solar system, the stars, the constellations, double stars, carbon stars, and along the terminator, what craters and objects you can see on the moon. And then the bulk of the book is by constellation. What are the key objects you can see there? They're all encoded, and the RAs and decks are given. It's been a very useful and interesting book. We bought it a while ago, a large group rearranged, because the cost of it is fairly high on the shipping, and we got a discount when we got about 20 or 30 people. So if you're interested, maybe post and you could arrange that. Bieren's book is pretty neat, something different. And with that, Happy Mother's Day. Questions? I'm off. Thank you. Okay. Yeah.
Didn't mention all this viewing, of course, it depends on Mother Nature, right?
Well, Gaia is Mother Earth, Mother Nature. Yeah. Any other comments or? Yeah, Charlene.
I just thought it was very clever of you to talk so much about lunacy for your Mother's Day presentation.
Ooh. Well, the next month is Father's Day, so we'll see what, there's a golf putter asterism, so whoever talks can talk about the golf putter asterism. Comments, questions? Thank you, everyone.